So this week, we saw a lot of stuff. And this is pod people talking about pod people.
Yo.
Okay.
The streets have only been discussing one thing. The streets is discussing one thing and one thing only.
That's right. The streets been talking. It's about Megan's knees. Nah, just kidding. So, the Podfather, Big Joe from the Joe Budden podcast. All right, if y'all not fans of the Budden podcast, you can still listen to this only because I think there's a larger conversation at hand. So, last week on the air, he fires Rory and Mal. Apparently, they did not come. They hit. At least Rory hit Joe last second and say, yo, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my lawyer. And that he did it like right before the episode was going to get filmed. So out of anger, enraged, Joe fires Rory and Mal from the podcast effective that moment. Rory and Mal come out with a response called, I'll name this response later. Clever. For $2. I paid for it, did you?
I bootlegged the shit out of it.
Come on, man.
I didn't know, like, it came up on my YouTube for free. I didn't know there was a $2 thing.
Say it again?
Where do you buy it?
Vimeo. Oh. They did a Vimeo on demand, $2. I think they probably can make they could probably sell 100,000 on that right there. But they come out with all the information. So, Joe says that they were accusing him of being a thief. They were accusing him of, well, Joe keeps saying that they were betraying him, and I just don't see, because, Joe be talking in circles.
Yeah.
He be talking in these mystical terms and things, and it's just like, what are you talking about?
Joe be performing.
He does be performing, and it's like, it's nice to hear, but at the end of the episode, sometimes I'm like, he didn't really say much. You be talking in methodicals.
So I think it's very important to separate, because obviously the Joe Budden thing came out first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you sent me it and it was listening, and my initial reaction was, damn, Parks is spicy on this podcast right now.
I said the same thing too, yeah.
I'm like, yo, because Parks is kind of like, he seemed, at least the week before, whenever they did pod, I guess it was 2 weeks before because they did this week-long vacation. Mm-hmm. Parks was like intermediary. Mm-hmm. He was riding with Joe, but he understood the other side.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to this podcast, it seemed like he was heavily entrenched in the Joe Budden side and throwing little barbs at Rory and Mal, which I think that was one of the biggest takeaways that I had was like, yo, this is like a different Parks. So something happened, is what I thought.
I mean, it seems like Parks was just surprised that they didn't show up, and Park has already said, "Yo, this is my livelihood. This is how I make money, and I get paid very well. So I don't care what else happens. So long as I get paid well, I'm good."
But I think the difference is Parks and everybody else on the Joe Budden podcast that's still there are salary.
I don't know if Parks is salary.
No, he's definitely salary.
Oh, he is?
Yeah. So everybody that's behind the scenes, that's not on camera full time. Mm-hmm. So it's just Mal, Rory, and Joe were percentage splits or whatever it was.
Okay.
Everybody else is salary. And the reason why I'm saying that is in the response that Mal and Rory did, they talked about when that Cash App deal or the Patreon deal came in and they talked about the money. Mm-hmm. They're like, yo, I'm feeling the sense that the behind the scenes staff is like feeling overworked. Mm-hmm. So just give the money to them.
Right.
Divvy it up. And Parks was one of those people. Mal kept saying Parks, because, Parks just, I guess, gets a flat, salary for whatever he's doing. Mm-hmm. So that was the first thing. The second thing was it seemed like Joe really was worried about the way people were looking at him.
Okay, where do you get that from?
Because everything he was saying was to feeling like he was being demonized, like he felt like he was being victimized, like he was a victim because people were speaking about or like Rory and Mal were characterizing him in a certain way, and that was what the biggest point he wanted to make was, this isn't what. Let me tell you what's really happening. I'm gonna be transparent. I gave them their opportunity to speak. They didn't want to tell the truth the right way, so I'm gonna tell the truth.
Okay, so let me give you my response or my reaction to the first one where Joe fired them. I listened to that and I was kind of on the fence. I was like, okay, I totally understand Joe as an owner of the podcast and these guys working for him. You can't just walk out of something for 6 weeks unless it's a union job. You can strike, but everybody got strike. Right. Everybody got a strike. But 2 people, y'all can't just leave and then just come back whenever you want.
Right.
Okay, so there's that. But of course, they leave for a reason. Now, the whole inviting me to my hands thing, I always felt like that is so odd. But okay, I'll go for it. I'll go with it.
Right.
I'll go with it. I guess there's tension. And fine. So I was in the middle, but I was more on Joe's side because I was like, people got to recognize who's in charge of what.
For sure.
Okay. And for me, it was like, it seemed like when they say it was not about money and it's about respect, to me, I figured it was Joe saying things to them off camera that was not nice. Right. Like, he's clearly not a super nice guy. You know what I'm saying? So I was kind of riding with him, and then he sent them the accounting package, and it was beautifully made, and just all this stuff. And I still didn't totally get it, but I was on that side of saying, okay, I think I totally understand where Joe's coming from as the boss, as the leader. A lot of people don't know what it takes to be in charge. Right. You know, a lot of people don't understand. Like I told the guys yesterday, right? I was like, all right, if I charge a client $1,400 to go shoot a video, and I paid a DP $1,400, I pay myself $700, and I pay myself $700. As the owner of the company, I don't get to keep $700. Right. I get to keep like $200, but he gets to keep $700. Right. So in his mind, he must think that I'm big balling, right? Or, you know, but no, I have to pay for this company being alive, you know, and I pulled from that. I was like, all right, so maybe those guys don't understand that how much Joe has to pay. And I also realized that Joe is the draw, you know. Absolutely. Joe is the draw. Mal and Rory are just kind of, I don't want to say they're there, but they're not the reason why most people come. In fact, there was an episode where it was Rory and Mal, and the episode was like an hour long, where Joe was like sick or he was on vacation or something, and they were just not that exciting.
I mean, definitely Joe has the takes. Joe has the performance. You know, Joe already has the brand and all that kind of stuff. And I think that Rory and Mal just set like the vibes. You know what I mean? Like it gives the alternate perspectives, and it makes Joe in a comfortable arena to be able to be himself.
Right. And you can definitely see that, because I stopped watching State of the Culture because I just thought it was just too performative. Like, I was used to Joe being goofy and with his friends and all that stuff, and then once he gets into this corporate setting, it was just like, oh, this is lame. Right. So I was 52% on Joe's side. Then Rory and Mal dropped their response. I saw it was for $2, so I said, okay, these guys are trying to make $30,000 each off of this. Okay, because I'm pretty sure they can get 60,000 people to pay for this. If they were pulling $1 million a week, which I'm saying is probably a mixture of YouTube and audio, they can get 60,000 people to get this.
Especially in something that's so like in the moment, like that response dropped
15,000. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was kind of intriguing to see. Like, they had this thing set up, ready to go. Like,
it looks like where Wayno does his podcast. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, like they had this plan. You know what I mean?
And I think that it's right for them to do that, because Joe really put Rory's name in the dirt. Like, firing him on camera, yelling, screaming, measly, manipulator, liar, all this stuff. Like, who's gonna want to hire Rory?
True.
You know, after all of that. So I think it was in their best interest to do that. So they come out, and the first thing I noticed is that they did not call Joe out of his name.
Out by his name, you mean?
Out of his name. So they didn't say that bum, that this. They didn't say none of that stuff.
They didn't.
It seemed like they felt bad for Joe a little bit. It felt like they were like, dang, that's my homeboy, but like, come on, bro. You know, that's what I got. So first of all, they talk about their split. So it's a percentage-based split. They asked Joe for the accounting, and he always got defensive about it.
Well, it seemed like, I guess, even before that, right? So the relation, how it started and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, the thing about, like, Rory has connections to industry heads because of the type of business that he's in. Mm-hmm. So it seems like from the start, if Rory ever discussed the podcast with anybody outside of Joe's realm or without Joe knowing about it, from what Rory's depicting, Joe gets very upset about that.
Yes.
So setting up the precedent that like Joe really looks how he looks at these guys versus, you know, it being a team environment. It's more like, nah, you guys are just employees of mine type of thing.
So the second thing that came to mind is when Maul said Joe thinks that this show came from his rap career. And to be honest with you, I think it did.
Absolutely.
I think it did. Mainly because it's on the internet. If Joe put out an album, it would probably still be hard to fill a venue. Right? It would probably still be hard to fill a venue because we don't like him for rapping. I mean, some people do. But because he's already a famous guy, and he gets on a platform and he starts yelling and screaming and doing whatever he does, it's easy to click on something. It's easy.
Yeah.
And then once you click on it and you realize like, oh, this guy does this all the time, you get into the zone of like, oh, let me go back and watch this. Oh, he's on Everyday Struggle. Let me watch that. Oh, he's on this. Let me watch that. So once you watch it enough, you could build a following. So yes, the following of the show 100% came from his rap career. And because Joe is good at it, it grew.
I think the most captivating or the stuff that I really look forward to on the Joe Budden podcast when I used to watch it regularly was his breakdowns of albums, his breakdowns of beefs, his breakdowns of all those types of things because of his understanding of the industry, him being a rap head, and also like just his understanding of street culture plus corporate culture. And I just think he did a really good job of always like tying in things. Like when he was breaking down like Drake's album and stuff like that and all the beefs between Drake and Kanye and all that kind of stuff, like that was really captivating stuff, I thought.
Yep.
You know, and so all that is because of Joe's career in you know, hip hop or whatnot.
Yeah. And so he is the draw. Now, they keep saying, like, we built this together. Yeah.
They were all there together.
They were all there together.
But in their defense, I think they stipulated to that. They understand that Joe's the draw.
Yeah, 100%.
They weren't trying to say that we're
sure.
bigger personalities or we're more of the podcast than them.
Yes.
They made it clear, like, yo, we know that most people are here for Joe.
Yes.
And that's why we take a lower percentage than Joe takes.
100%.
But I think what they felt was Joe's trying to act like they play no role in the show.
Yes. And now after watching Joe's thing, I kind of was like, I mean, they didn't try to do much more. And he's saying they were not prepared. They would come. They didn't listen to anything, so on and so forth. So I was like, okay, I could see where as the person who his name is on the show and you always want to make it better every single week, how that could come off. Like you're doing everything in your power to make this show really work. And then people, your co-hosts, they come in and they're not on your level of preparation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, but when I went back to the Maul and Rory response, it made me think, okay, first of all, when you're winning in the position that Joe is winning, they put in the time. They may not have put in the effort or the energy, the same thing that you put in, but that's why you get the bigger cut.
Right.
And when they said that they would bring up the accounting and he would just get defensive about that and call them names and say they were insecure and so on and so forth, to me, as a person who has gotten money before and knew like, hey, my team did something and I could easily just keep all the money myself. But the way anything works is by being grateful for the people who help you get to your spot. And credit sometimes is not enough when you got more than credit.
Right.
So for Joe, he got all the money, more money than he's ever seen. He's getting to talk to Jay-Z all the time. He's got numbers in his phone that he didn't have before. Now the money has arrived and he feels like he's 99% of the draw. And so he deserves 99% of the money. And I can easily see what Maul was saying with him just saying, hey, let's just get rid of these two guys. They're too expensive anyways. I could do this with anybody, and I could pay anybody else less. And I could see that because there is this ultimate sense of selfishness that comes from Joe's corner, where it's like, dude, if you're realistically saying that there's too much money being made for people to be unhappy, then you shouldn't have a problem splitting it with your guys, especially if they give you their time, if they give you their energy. May not be the same energy and time that you put in it, but take the bigger cut. Take 75%.
Yeah, I think that Joe comes off looking pretty bad after this whole situation.
So. Yeah.
As far as just individual. And it's more because he's still trying to play like he's playing he's above it. Mm-hmm. These are my guys. These are my friends. Pray for them. You know, like all this kind of stuff when in all actuality, it kind of seemed like, yo, Joe, like, you're the issue, my dude. Like, you're the one that, like, I don't know, like, it goes back to just business. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, when it comes to money, I don't think you should necessarily take, like, your emotions shouldn't get involved with that. If you are the CEO of a company and you have partners that are, like, expecting a certain percentage, like off of commission or whatever the case may be, like, or just even a individual that getting commission. Like, I work plenty of commission jobs. I need to see what went through, what didn't go through. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm in sales,
about transparency too.
Yeah.
If you own stock in a company, they let you know like, go to Disney and see their financial reports. You could see it.
Right.
You could legitimately see it. So for me, when I heard that he was just like, they were asking for the Spotify deal, like, how much did we make? Oh, no, I'm not sharing that with you. But then you turn around and you say Spotify needs to tell you, or Complex needs to tell you what they got so you can get your fair share. Now, I will say this. The part about ownership, he don't got to give them any ownership.
Right. Like,
I totally understand that. Understood. Even if you're the guy saying everybody needs to take ownership, everybody needs to know their role and all this, I get it. Some things that's mine. That's mine.
Right.
But pay the guys. Like, just pay them. Ultimately, you will get more money keeping your entire team satisfied rather than you being the selfish guy who gets new teeth and new hats.
But see, I don't think that, from what I got from the Maul and Rory thing, it wasn't that they felt like they weren't getting paid.
No, it's information that's getting hidden from them.
What I think the whole issue became is that it's just like, why anytime I ask a question, you're taking it like the way you're taking it, and why all of a sudden are you getting so hostile whenever these type of like easy situations are being brought up? And it goes back to just like what you were saying. And what they were saying is like, yo, this guy's changing.
Yep.
And he started to feel himself, and maybe he does think he's bigger than these guys, and he doesn't need these guys. And when they came back and Maul and Rory were on the show, you could tell how like Maul was upset about him going, still doing the show with Ice and who was the other guy?
Ish.
Ice and Ish, and that was kind of what. For the biggest takeaway from my whole thing with the Maul and Rory response is Maul was emotional.
Yeah.
And you don't really see Maul emotional that often. You don't see Maul really like dragging people or like speaking on personal stuff, but he was taking shots at Joe. Taking shots at the music career, taking shots at, yo, you weren't even that good friends with these people, taking shots at the wardrobe, taking shots at, yo, people have been telling me, you know, Joe is funny with the money, and name dropping. saying Royce,
Yep.
saying Crooked Eye,
Yep.
you know, and to me that was really like, yo, this is different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this is the stuff that if Maul and Rory would actually like have done on the show, like they would have been like better podcasters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because a lot of people feel like Maul like rarely spoke anyway.
Yeah.
Like he didn't really have much of an opinion about anything. But like the next thing for me was the Excel sheet.
Yeah.
Oh, just here's this Excel sheet. For me, I think all of accounting, like if you ever use what's the name of that program I use? Anybody know? QuickBooks. If you ever use QuickBooks, you could legitimately just print out
for sure.
A report, and then maybe get like invoices, receipts, anything like that you're spending. So when Joe said, "Oh, Rory's asking about where is this? Why are we paying this? What is this expense about?" It makes you think like, "Oh, well, if he's your employee, why does he need to care about that?" But then you find out that
they're all spending the cost.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're not, but they are at the same time. Because if I'm getting a percentage off the profit, then yeah, whatever you're paying comes out of my pocket too. So when he said that, like, you just sent us an Excel sheet, like that just seems grimy. Like it seems shady. And that's what I keep saying about this the selfishness. It clearly seems like Joe said, "Yo, I can make more money without these guys."
See, I think it also plays into Joe really paying attention to how he's being viewed. I think Joe tries to act like this dude that doesn't care what people think about him.
Oh, he cares so much.
He does.
He cares so much.
And I think that he is trying to be this person that's a good person, a good friend, a loyal friend, and all this kind of stuff. But let's be real. Let's look at Joe's track record.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one of loyalty. It's not one of deep friendships, extended friendships. It's not one of, being able to work through problems. Like every public relationship that we know about Joe, whether it be dudes, women, groups, whatever it is, ends with them breaking up in a very public, not very cordial way. So I think Joe wants to seem like this loyal guy, and he's not.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make him a bad person. It makes him a bad person because you're trying to act like you're not that type of way, dude. Like, nah, like if these guys were really your friends, you're not. Because all of the Maul and Rory stuff was a response. All their stuff was in private. Mm-hmm. The only reason any of us know what's going on is because of Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Joe made it public.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, and that's kind of what my takeaway is. And obviously all of us are 1,000 miles away watching, and, we're getting tidbits here, and we're filling in the blanks with our own personal experiences and stuff like that. But I just feel like how viral this went is really sad, because it seems like a lot of people were invested in, or at least paying attention to the show.
Yeah.
And to see it just like fall apart,
Yeah,
I think it's a big mistake on Joe's part. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
I think he'll be fine, but I think he had something really good going with these guys, and maybe he's not gonna. He can make. Obviously he could make more, a bigger chunk of the change with not paying these guys, but. I think he missed the big picture as far as, like 70% of $1 million is more than, or 70% of $1 million is more than 90% of 100,000. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You could have built this bigger and bigger and bigger, had guys that you could have, like, because the appeal, and I think this one of the first podcasts that really like took off, was the appeal was everybody felt like they were part of the crew. Mm-hmm. Like, you felt like you were on the couch with these guys, chopping it up, and you wanted to hang out with these guys.
Yep.
And because you wanted to hang out with these guys, you're going to pay for that ticket to go to the live show and kick it with them and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that same vibe is going to be there with whomever he brings in.
No, yeah, it just seems like he doesn't do good business, and he doesn't do right by his people. But that's what I keep saying about the selfishness part, because it's like, when you start seeing money come in, you see how people talk about like corporate America, right? It's all about greed. How can we make more? Greed. The average person doesn't know what they're gonna do when they have to split $4 million. Right?
Yeah.
The average person doesn't have a big problem splitting $100 bill at a restaurant. But once the bill gets too big, all of a sudden people got problems.
Right.
Right? I didn't order that. That's not on me. Right?
I didn't even eat that much of that.
Exactly, right? So, but then the moment if the higher the number goes, the more somebody's greed is gonna get to it,
right?
And that's legitimately why I keep saying like this is such a small problem, because these guys are asking for the accounting, and then if you send them an Excel worksheet or whatever, and it just seems phony, like you're hiding something. And then once they said the $400,000 mistake, ain't no $400,000 mistake. These guys are sitting there, and before I was kind of more on academic side. Like I was like, oh, okay, these guys are just bums sitting there. You know, they upset, disgruntled workers and stuff. But then you find out like they're partners in this.
Right.
You know, they're low key owners. They're not owners, but they're partners. And when you point out a $400,000 mistake, why are you getting upset? $400,000 mistake is a huge difference in how much these guys get paid, and they work. You may not like how they work, but they work.
Right. And it didn't seem like, from the way that was being explained, they didn't even think that was on Joe. They were just like, yo, this doesn't make sense. He's talked to wealth management about it, and they admitted to the issue, like the mistake, and they fixed it. Like, but my whole thing is, when you say that this is a simple thing, easy thing to fix, this is just a symptom. The virus is something completely different. And the virus, this podcast would have never worked. I don't agree with you that this could have been fixed. Because at the end of the day, this was just what was the final straw, or what actually sunk the ship. Mm-hmm. But the ship was gonna get sunk regardless, because the leader wasn't a good leader. Right, and it would have shown up in another way if it wasn't.
It's a transparency problem.
It's not even a transparency. It's more of a like Maul said, a respecting, but it's more of like the ego got too big to where you're not like Joe's vision for all this stuff about Joe, like coming up and being like, I see like the bigger picture, and I'm looking 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, this whole podcast space, and you know, people aren't on my level and all this kind of stuff, dude. Like, nah, man, you aren't seeing what it was, because Rory and Maul, not to disrespect them and stuff, but like both of us have run businesses before. There's a certain type of person where you can, they don't necessarily need money to feel valued. Yeah. And Rory and Maul were those type of people that if Joe just finessed them in a different way, it wouldn't even be about money. Their issues weren't money. Their issues was the way that he was treating them. Yeah. And if he would have finessed them and saw, even if he was like, yo, I could hustle these guys, I could make more money, I could hustle these guys out of money, which is shitty, but the truth is, like, he could have done it with these guys because they don't seem like that ambitious type of people. Yeah, they don't. And they were just like kind of along for the ride, and all they wanted to do was feel like validated. Exactly. Yeah. Or feel some kind of like appreciation. And Joe couldn't even give them that. Yeah. It really is on how you treat people, and your success is not your success. It's based on your team. And I'll tell you this story about like one time with me and Chris. One time we did something, and this is like maybe Chris is like second year editing or second year, something like that. And then he he left something in the shop, and in his eyes he was just kind of like, this is fine. And I think in the editing session, I wasn't there, but Chris, if you remember, I don't want to say his name, but like you pretty much said like, this is fine. The shot is really quick, so we can leave it in the shot. You remember that? Yeah. So. Okay. In the editing session, he didn't say anything, right? He was just like, oh, okay. Right? Right. All right. I got a call that like maybe the next day or later that evening. A lot of yelling. A lot of cussing. Just a lot. Man. Just a lot. And
in my opinion, I don't really care what the client asks for. I just give it to them. Like you're paying me.
Right.
Just take here. You know, even if I think it sucks, your choice sucks. Here, I don't have to put this on my resume. I don't have to put it on my website. Like, you paid me already. Good, enjoy. So when I got that phone call, and we were kind of up for like a way bigger project, so I was a little disappointed. I was like, damn, we just lost that. So I called Chris. I was like, Chris, all right. So when you talk to the clients, if they ask for something, just give it to them. He was like, all right. I was like, just so you know, we're up for like a way bigger thing. He's not going to work with us anymore, but just kind of take this as a teachable moment and learn from it. And am I wrong, Chris? Something like it pretty much happened like that?
Essentially,
Yeah. And then I just kind of was like, just whatever. If the client says they want it, just give it to them. That's it. Just like, it doesn't matter what your opinion is, unless it's a really good opinion. Like if it's like a technical one, you know, if the client says like, oh, slow this down, but they didn't shoot it in slow motion, and you say that's going to look horrible, and they still say give it to them, give it to them. But in this situation, I was like, just give them whatever they want. And I think that that's the difference, because I could have turned back to Chris and said, Chris, like I could do that, you know, but I don't necessarily look at it that way in a leadership style way of looking at things. You know I'm a lot to work with, because I kept Chris up really late plenty of times when he has to go to work like 5 hours later. And that's just the type of work I am. I'm just kind of like, let's just get this done. But in this case, you know, I do tell people like when things get messed up, but I try to keep it, you know, I try to have a certain sense of reverence and respect, even if I have to like come down on people and say, yo, this is where things got messed up. This is where I lost money. This is this and this is that. The difference is remembering that you're your team and your team is you. And, you know, if you treat people like trash, then you'll get trash back, especially if they don't quit. That's the worst, because if you treat people like complete garbage and they stay with you, you're never going to get high quality work from them. They're just going to be there for a paycheck, or they're just going to be there just to be there. But they're not incentivized. They're not excited to work for you. It's just like when your parents say, I'm disappointed in you. You know, that's worse than anger and yelling and all this stuff, because you're like, oh, man, like I did not want to do that.
Yeah, but taking it back to like, you know, Joe, like, here's the thing. Like, we sometimes, I think, put artists and, you know, these kind of people that we see, like, that are famous or whatnot, on this pedestal, thinking that they're some kind of, like, whiz, like, they understand, like, they're all entrepreneurs and all this kind of stuff. That's not true. Like, I think Joe, if you watch the podcast, they're pretty honest. Like, this is the first time they're ever, like, really building a business. And I think this is growing pains for a first business. Like, Joe is realizing...
First successful business.
And Joe could come back from this in the sense, like, he could, if he actually looks himself in the mirror, you know, networks with more successful entrepreneurs, more successful business owners, because so here's one of the things that I think people don't understand about really successful people that make a lot of money. They're not always necessarily genuine when they do things. They do things with the purpose. They always have a reason for why they're doing things. I'll tell you a story. So I, you know, used to work with used to have this mentor who's ultra successful, multi-millionaire, runs, you know, multiple businesses internationally, sales, works with some of the top client, like Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies. And I was having dinner with him because, you know, I was doing pretty well in the business and he wanted to network and so on and so forth. So I told this gentleman, and let's just call him Steve. His name wasn't Steve, but just for this story. So I was like, Steve, I see how much you give back to your people. You're just such a good guy. And he looked at me and he's like, Sunil, I'm not a good guy. And I was like, come on, Steve. Like, I saw you just gave $10,000 to this person, and I see you giving money to this person. You gave money to this person. He's like, Sunil, that's not because I'm a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, look, if I keep people happy on my team, they're going to make me even more money.
Yep.
It's not because I'm a nice guy and I want to make these guys feel good because it makes me feel good. I'm doing it because they're a part of my business and I need them to do a certain job for me to be able to, make more money.
Yep.
So, and moving forward in that relationship with this person, I realized that, dude, like, this reverence that I had for him went from me thinking he was just like this ultra good person to me just like being in awe of his business savvy and him knowing how to play the game and manipulate and get things to where they need to be to have the most success. It's just chess.
Yeah.
And Joe played the chess game the wrong way.
100%.
He could learn from this, because the problem is with hip hop, and sometimes the problem with, all this stuff, is people are too into like the intentions
and the destination.
And not only destination, but like Joe's really worried about how he's coming off. When in reality, it doesn't need to be genuine. You don't have to treat somebody good because you're a good person. Treat somebody good because you need them to make yourself even more money. Like, at the end of the day, it sounds shitty, but when we're talking about business,
just take care of your people.
Just take care of your people.
That's
and even if it's not
true.
like, even if you don't like genuinely like feel good about taking care of your people, that's fine. He should have seen that, look, my business is better with these two guys here, and they're cheaper, or they're like, we've built it, we have this repertoire, we're touring, like, we can make this bigger and bigger. They're not the type of people that are going to be asking for big pay raises and all this kind of stuff. I'm actually getting them on the cheap for what we're developing here. And his podcast is what spun off to him getting the Revolt deal, to him getting, Complex and all this kind of stuff. So he was getting his personal money, his personal pockets were getting bigger and bigger off of the platform for the podcast. And these guys only wanted a piece of the podcast.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, Joe, what are you doing, bro?
Right.
The podcast isn't even your biggest moneymaker. Everything you're doing outside of it is 100% your profit.
Yep.
So why, like, it's just mind-boggling. And I think Joe's a smart enough guy, and hopefully has the right type of people around him where he could be like, damn, I am like being stupid. Like, whether or not how people think about me, like, I played this the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that's what he should learn from this, because, when you have a great platform, like, you don't want to mess that up over something so stupid.
That's why I'm saying this could have been solved, because if Joe had taken a look in the mirror way earlier on, which you won't, because you could see the trend in his personality where he's getting hyper aggressive about these specific scenarios where he wants the glory and the honor mention. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he wants it all. He wants to
all
be the one
credit.
that walks into the, I got us this deal.
Right.
When Rory said he sat down with the dude and he didn't want Rory to get that. He doesn't want Rory to have any value at all. But the exact opposite is how you create your own value.
Exactly.
I read this quote from the guy who started Sandwich Co. about a year ago. And they asked him, like, how did you find so much success? And he was like, dude, it's all on my team. My team is the reason why I got here. And not to say I've ever been like a really selfish person. I've always tried to be the person that, like, put myself on the line, make sure everybody else was taken care of before I was taken care of. But that clicked in my mind even more than ever. And the moment that I started just, asking for more for the team and doing things for the team, that's when I realized, like, oh snap, this side of life is way sweeter. And I think a first time business person who sees those big numbers has to avoid that selfishness to say, this is all mine, right? To get over that hump of what you're seeing right now, because what's in the future
Right.
is so much greater, so much better with the people that you want there.
And I think what the common misunderstanding is, it has to be because you're a good person. Like, I genuinely, I don't know about Joe Budden as a person. From everything that I've seen and whatnot, he doesn't seem like the nicest person. He doesn't seem like the most genuine person.
No, yeah.
You know, he seems like, you know, an asshole, and I think he's honest about it and whatnot. But he doesn't need to change himself as like needing to be a more genuine person, needing to be a more caring person. It's not about that. It's about, you're playing a game. Mm-hmm. You're playing chess. There's no emotions. It's just about make the right move. Mm-hmm. And whether or not your intentions are pure or not, it doesn't matter. Even if it's for self, he could be selfish. But in being selfish, he needed to use these pawns or whatever piece on the chessboard they are to keep making moves. And instead, he played the game wrong.
Yeah, totally wrong. Played his hand wrong.
And that's what it was. Like, I don't think he needs to. I think he's like, there's a lot of selfish people and bad character people that are very successful because they know how to play the game.
Absolutely. They know it's not just them. They're not the king, the queen, and the whole kingdom.
Yep. And I think Joe just thinks he's better at the game than he actually is.
I agree with that. I think he's pretty poor at business.
Yeah. Ack said it too. He said I think Joe's not a very good CEO. And remember when him and Charlemagne were getting into it as far as that, like, you know, Joe, I think Joe sometimes, because he's the loudest voice in the room, it makes him believe that he's also like the smartest person in the room.
But that's just a sign of insecurity.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell Joe's super insecure.
Very insecure. But to close out on this topic, I 100% thoroughly enjoyed academics smoking under Rory rants. Sending Rory the boss man business card. Like, academics made my week. I've been listening to academics for a long time. I can understand how people don't like him, but the guy is hell of an entertainer. Like, he kept me entertained for like 5 hours with this whole Rory and Maul thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the guy.
I wonder what he's gonna do now, because I feel like the Rory and Maul thing is so much more of what his content has been for the past like.
Oh no, academics has a variety, but he did love picking on Rory.
Yeah,
and I think it's because Rory was talking all that trash about him like 2 years ago, maybe, and then I guess Rory sent some guys, maybe, I don't know, allegedly, to his house over the girl. Academics said, he put his business out on Front Street, so.
You think Rory and Maul bounce back? You think they have any say in the podcasting world? You think they're just gonna like?
Nah, I don't think we see much more from Maul, and I think Rory goes back into kind of his shell and just goes back and
behind the scenes.
Yeah, but I do think that some of the reason why Rory manages whoever he manages, like Emotional Orange, is tied to the podcast. Because I feel like in a certain sense, he can market them way better than somebody else could.
You think that falls away now, though?
I think that there might be a slow unraveling for Rory.
He had Duce Palooza. I don't know what that was.
Yeah. Well, Duce Palooza, I actually tried to go to it when it was called Henny Palooza. Mm-hmm. And I think they got sued or something. But Duce Palooza is just a big party.
Right, but it's pretty successful, right?
Oh, yeah. I think it made like multi-millions. I actually don't think that Rory is like rich or anything. I think he just made, an average amount of money. But because Duce Palooza was with multiple people.
Right.
I think maybe that comes back, once COVID's done. And
I think he'll be right. I mean, I think he's been in the industry.
Fine, but not like...
He's not going to be as popular or famous.
No.
How do you think Joe Budden podcast that goes on from here?
Yeah, it does fine. Ice and Ish, they perform better than Rory and Maul. I never really liked listening to Rory all that much. Mainly because like I agreed most of the time when Rory spoke, he's smarter than Joe. He's more educated than Joe. So he kind of like when Joe said something incredibly stupid, Rory would be there to be like, actually no, blah blah blah, right? But I didn't necessarily enjoy him because I think Rory's awkward. Like he's awkward on the mic. He's awkward when speaking. He laugh like he's awkward. So I just I wish they had an Andrew Schultz, but they don't.
Andrew Schultz 101, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
Andrew Schultz does it better than Rory does. Maul on the hand, I don't know what Maul does anyway. So
Right.
But I think the show does fine. I think maybe it even grows in listenership.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't think it's gonna grow. I think his platform will grow because he's doing like Joe Budden Network or whatever. So he'll probably attract certain talent and all that kind of stuff. But the actual show itself, I don't know. I think he needs conflict for that show to be good. So he has to create some more conflict, whether it be rap beef, whether it be whatever, because that conflict between him, Rory, and, like all that kind of stuff was what the show was. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be able to do the same thing with Ish and Ice. I don't think he's going to be able to talk
according
to
to Ack, when Maul and Rory left, Ish and Ice, they got like a 30% bump in listenership. And people love Ish and Ice. Like they really like them more than Rory and Maul. Like when Rory and Maul came back, people were saying like, no, please, no, bring back Ish and Ice.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
It could be also because of the turmoil that people were tuning in, trying to see what they were going to say
was
and
happening.
stuff like that.
Yep, that's
so
true.
now that it's resolved, who knows?
Resolved or so.
Yeah, I mean,
would
as
like
far
to
as
see
we
them
know
come
that
back
it's
together,
done.
but yeah, it's done.
Who knows, man? I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's all up to Joe. I think these guys would come back because I think that this is the most famous and popular and the most money that they're going to be able to make is through this. It's just whether or not Joe could realize that he made a mistake in the way that he played the game. And, that, like I said, I mean, Joe, I don't think the podcast is where Joe was going to be able to maybe maximize the money because he's splitting with them. But all of his other stuff, he had so much more access to, like, all the networking that he had to make bigger deals that he didn't need to include these guys in.
I think Joe's a little bit out of it, me personally. Like, out of his mind.
I mean, yeah.
Well,
I think that's what makes him intriguing as well.
That's true. Men on the Internet podcast. Find us on every podcasting app every Tuesday. Full episodes on YouTube every Thursday. And clips on YouTube throughout the week.